Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nandhini, and today I have here with me my colleague Lilin. We are both early literacy librarians from the National Library Board. So essentially what we do is that we create and curate suitable programs for children between the age of 0 and 6 years old. So as you can see on the screen, the title for our presentation today is Promoting Early Literacy Skills Through Engaging Activities. So through this presentation today, we hope to share with you some simple ideas on the types of activities that you can do with your little ones at home and outdoors in order to develop their literacy skills as well as to cultivate a lifelong love for reading. So this is the outline of today's presentation. I will first share with you some important concepts relating to language and literacy. These will be our 6 early literacy skills, as well as information on our 5 early literacy practices, as well as the recommended activities to do with your little ones. We will also be sharing more on our library programs and resources that can help to support your child's learning. So at this point, some of us might be wondering, why is early literacy important? So time to time, a lot of research has shown that children begin learning language the moment that they are born. So their first 3 years are especially critical for their long-term language development. So at this stage, what happens is that they will begin to recognize sounds, words, and actions, and they would respond to them by trying to imitate them. So this is why regular interactions with literacy materials like your pen, your paper, your books will greatly shape their learning, reading, and writing behaviors. And I'm sure all of us here would agree that parents and family play a very, very important role in their early language and literacy development. So always remember that you are your child's first teacher, and what you say and what you do will greatly impact their learning outcomes. So on screen, you see that these are the 6 early literacy skills that research has shown is important for children to develop so that they can become fluent readers. So these early literacy skills are not arranged in any particular order, but the first one is print motivation. So print motivation is basically refers to a child's desire or interest in engaging with print materials, so such as your books. And then the second early literacy skill, which is vocabulary, refers to a child's ability to kind of recognize the name of people, objects, and things around them. So this is also important for their verbal and communication skills. And your third one, which is your print awareness, refers to a child's ability to know how print is organized. So for example, if I'm presented with a text, knowing that I have to read from left to right, top to bottom. And fourthly, phonological awareness is about knowing about the rules of sounds. So for example, knowing what rhymes are, what are the sounds that occupy a letter, or the beginning or the end of a sentence, what are the sounds that I have to make. And then your fifth literacy skill, which is letter knowledge, is knowing more about the different types of letters. So for example, what does a small a stand for, and what does a capital A stand for, and when should I use them, and what not. And last but not least, narrative skill refers to a child's ability to simply just talk or describe about their experiences, or what they go through with people around them. So this is also important in building their confidence, communication, as well as their verbal skills. So these 6 early literacy practices are in turn shaped by these 6 early literacy skills are in turn shaped by these 5 early literacy practices that we see on screen. So the first is read, write. Thirdly is to play, and fourthly sing, and last but not least is to talk. So I will not be going into the definitions or the purpose of these 5 literacy practices because I think they are pretty straightforward. But what I'll be doing now is that I'll be sharing with you more about some of the activities that you can do at home or outside your home with your child in order to cultivate these 5 early literacy practices. So the first one is, of course, reading. Reading, we know, is very important, and there are a lot of activities that we can do starting from our homes itself. So the first one is a very basic one, which is to create a daily reading routine. So just set aside about 30 minutes every day to read to your child. And to complement this, set up a cozy reading corner at home. So just simply assemble some shelves, get some books from the library or buy some books, and create a nice reading corner for your child. And when you're doing this, ask them engaging questions about the story or the characters found in the story. So later on, I'll be sharing with you more about some of the types of questions that we can ask our children to kind of engage them and stimulate them. And when doing this, also explore the use of sensory or colorful books. And when using sensory books, you can also infuse playfulness with a lot of creative reading games. So what do I mean by sensory books? So sensory books are very, very important tools for young children, especially those who are just beginning their journey to read. So at this stage, they might not be able to form sentences or let alone like read an entire book on their own. So this is where sensory books, which are packed with interactive elements like creative games, are important in engaging them. So as you can see on screen, this is one of the books that's available in our library. It's called My Magical Center. And for sensory books, it's very easy to spot them. So usually they do have a label that's indicated. So for this book, you would see on the right hand side, there's a push pull slide. So indicating that these are some of the interactive elements that's featured in the book. So for example, for this book, right, what parents can do is to read the story to them, and then you can get your child to like look at the pictures, focus their attention on the different color schemes found in the picture, and at the same time get them to participate in the story by, for example, pulling up the flaps or spinning the Christmas wheel found in the book. So all of these pages are packed with like little games to stimulate your little ones. So for outdoor activities, you can be as creative as you want to be. So for example, you can start by planning mini scavenger hunts with suitable books when going to places like the zoo or other places of attraction. So for example, in the zoo, what you can do is you can ask your children to look for objects or animals featured in the books and create your own mini I Spy game. So for example, you can say, I spy 3 animals. Can you spot where they are? Can you name them? So by getting them to read and spell the names of the objects that they find, it would help to engage them and also help to develop their cognitive skills. And at the same time, what you can do is form good memories associated with reading. So make reading become like a family activity or a family gathering session. So you can arrange for like family reading sessions in outdoor spaces like the beaches, the parks, and even visits to the library. All right, so the other beautiful thing about words is that they are found all around us. So from our breakfast cereal boxes to the signages that we see outside. So for example, like you would see on the right-hand side of the screen, Singapore Cable notice boards on like Singapore Cable Car, Singapore Cruise Center. So what you can do is like direct your children's attention to these words that they see. So point out to the words in signages, menus, cereal boxes, and read these words to your child and also get them to read them to you. So what you can do is also to challenge each other to be the first one to find any object starting with a particular letter. So for example, you're in a restaurant and you can tell your child, name me 3 objects starting with the letter T found in this restaurant. And lastly, you can also name the label of any object and get your child to bring them to you. So earlier I mentioned about engaging your children by asking them insightful prompts and questions when reading the book to make the activity more interactive. So this brings back to this concept of dialogic reading. So what exactly is dialogic reading? Basically, it's built on the idea that scaffolded interactions between children and adults during reading will help to develop their literacy, vocabulary, narration, and comprehension skills. So the essence of this idea is to have conversation around stories found in the books. And during this, what happens is that you would engage in a role play with your child. So your child would now become the storyteller of the book, and you, the parent or adult, will become the active listener. So it sounds simple enough, right? But how do we exactly know what are the types of questions we can ask? So for this, I would introduce you to the crowd technique. This is a guide. This is one of the many guides found online that you can use when prompting questions. So there are 5 prompts that you can use when asking questions. So the first is the completion prompt. So this is kind of like leaving a blank at the end of a sentence what you want to complete. So for example, you can be like, the little child in this book is wearing a red, and then get them to complete the sentence. And then there's the recall prompt, where you can ask them simple questions on what happens in the stories or questions about the characters. So for example, you can point to the grumpy bear in the book and ask, what was the grumpy bear wearing? And the third prompt is an open-ended prompt. So it focuses on particular images, characters, and asks related questions. So for example, can you tell me why the kitten in this picture is crying? So point to the kitten and engage in a conversation about it. And the fourth prompt is our WH prompt, and I'm sure by now all of us know our 5 Ws and 1 H. So you can use this 5 W and 1 H structure to also create simple questions to kind of get your child more interested in what they are reading. And then finally is the distancing prompt. This is asking questions that relate to what your child or your children have experienced when reading the book. So for example, if the book is about a visit to a supermarket and you had recently gone to a supermarket, you can ask your child, so remember when we went to the supermarket last week, which of these food items did you see? And then you can engage in a conversation based on that. So to know more about dialogic reading, you can actually scan this QR code. There are also other resources available online. So just scan this QR code and you can take your time to familiarize yourself with this crowd technique. And these are two book recommendations that we have. So the first book, Lily's Just Like Me, for ages 0 to 3 years old, is packed with colorful illustrations, simple words and rhymes for little kids to enjoy. While Goodnight Bear, which is catered towards older kids, is an interactive book that allows them to participate in the storyline. So the next one is about writing. So what are some of the activities that you can do in order to encourage your child to write? So these are some of the things that you can try. Arts and crafts or drawing activities that involve writing, coloring, or letterships are quite popular activities as well. So one of the games that you can try is called Name Art. So what you can do is that this is a very simple activity. You can prepare a variety of craft objects. So for example, like your paper cards, color paper, fabric scraps, glitter, leaves, and so on. And try to make sure like these items are colorful and they have different textures so that your child can activate their senses. And what you can do is that write your child's name in big letters on a whiteboard or like a mahjong paper and guide your child to glue the objects on the paper following the lines of the letter. So for example, if you see on the right hand side of the screen, you would see the word Luke, the name of a child that the parent and child have created through this name art activity. And other things that we would recommend is also using everyday objects like your flour, your sand. These are very fun ways to engage your children. And Play-Doh has been proven to be a great sensorial tool to help learning about letters or numbers. So prepare pictures of items and also get your child to choose their favorite item, for example, a toy or a book, and then get them to trace the item's name. So remember, you can be as creative as you want, but remember to start small. Start by tracing alphabets or numbers before moving on to more complex words or even phrases. And these are two book recommendations that we have for writing. So the first one is ABC Zoo. So it's for younger kids that teaches them about ABC and tracing in a zoo setting. Whereas the second book is a bit more complex. It teaches kids on how to be more creative as well as think out of the box when engaging in art practices. So I'll pass the time now to Lilin to bring you through the rest of the early literacy practices. Lilin, please.
Yep, hi. Thanks, Nandhini. So I'll carry on with the other three more early literacy practices. The first one being, the third one actually being play. So play comes naturally to children, and plus it's important for their social and emotional development. When it comes to reading, it doesn't just mean going through word after word, sentence after sentence. Reading can be made fun and full of play, which really helps to take away the seriousness of reading and foster the joy of reading. For some activities of play, for example, on the left, you can see sensory bags. These are great for younger babies or toddlers where they are quite young and may not be very verbal, but they're already actively exploring the world around them. They are a good complement to books about concepts such as colors, numbers, and opposites, and it's a great way for them to experiment with textures. The great thing about sensory bags, it can be made easily with household items such as Ziploc bags, hand sanitizers, food coloring, and then you can add in things like the sponge, bottle cap, blue tacks, really quite up to you. When we let children play with sensory bags, the adults can share about the different items, different colors, as well as do some counting of the number of items inside. For the puppets in the middle, you can see they're actually a great way for trying role playing and dramatization. You can make very simple ones just by drawing characters on paper and sticking them on ice cream sticks, or you can consider doing origami like in the slide shown. So for older children, you can also use recycled materials such as Yakult bottles or toilet rolls. And after making the puppets, the idea is to reenact the story you've just read or even make your own story. And overall, it's great to hone children's creativity. On the right, you can see it's parachute play. So this is great for when you have a bigger group of children, say in a class, a room, or a party setting. And doing parachute play is usually a big hit with the children. It's very versatile. It can complement reading on many diverse topics. For example, directions, where they can move left and right, up and down, taking turns, colors, and even the weather, where we can shake very vigorously to create wind, or even hide under it to have shelter from rain. On the next slide, we will show you some examples of books. So this one is suitable for play in the form of dramatization. So How to Talk Like a Bear. In this book, the narrator, the brown bear, teaches the reader how to be a bear, and it breaks the fourth wall and speaks directly to the reader with step-by-step instructions. And the fun lies in being dramatic, where you just learn to roar as loud as you can. The next book is an example of something suitable for play in the form of moving with your body, Yoga Adventure. So this book challenges the notion that reading is always about staying still and being strapped to your seat. And it's really good for active kids with short attention spans, where this story has actions for them to follow. For example, you can pretend to ride a bicycle with your arms and your feet together. For further book recommendations, we have one on the left, Barnyard Dance for younger children, and on the right, Elephants Cannot Dance for older children. Both books encourage role play by taking on different characters, as well as moving and grooving as you read along to make reading fun. The fourth early literacy practice is to sing. So singing helps to break down our words and slow down the language, so it really helps children to hear complicated words properly. When we sing, we add rhythm and tune, and this helps with memory retention as well. So it's similar to how we remember song lyrics easier than sentences we read, say, on a newspaper. And how do we sing? We get playful. We use actions, we use movements, and we make silly sounds. The thing you have to remember is we don't have to be great singers for your child to learn through songs. So one way you can do that is actually to adapt nursery rhymes. So the libraries, we have our signature programs, Baby Lab, Sit, and Jiggle Read and Rhyme, where we often teach children concepts through songs and rhymes. So one example that you see here is when we teach about shapes, and we adapted Do You Know the Muffin Man into Do You Know the Super Square? And we add finger play where we teach them the square has 4 sides. So this one goes something like, do you know the muffin? Do you know the super square, the super square, the super square? Do you know the super square I'm holding in my hand? Yeah, and then the next example that we have is called a please song. So this is an example where we use songs with non-verbal signs that is extracted from a book. So this page, you can see that there's signs on how you can say please, which is to rub your chest, or even to say you want to eat, which is just, putting things into your mouth. And then we use the songs, in this case, adapted from The Wheels on a Bus, and we sing it to the children. And of course, when you're doing it yourself, you don't always have to start from scratch. So we ourselves also use help sometimes from ChatGPT. So very easy, you just tell ChatGPT you have a question like, hi, I want to sing rhymes to my 4-year-old child about, say, animal farms. Can you please give me some rhymes based on popular tunes? And you can see on the right, there are some examples and suggestions given by ChatGPT based on songs like Twinkle Twinkle, Row Your Boat, or The Wheels on a Bus. Yeah. For book recommendations, on the left, we have Twinkle Twinkle You're a Star. So this is great because it includes songs adapted from Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And the second book on the right, it's called The Drum. It's about making music with people around us with beats and rhythms for children to follow along. And finally, the last early literacy practice is to talk. So talking is a good way for children to learn about language. The idea of talking and reading is primarily dialogic reading, which was covered by Nandhini earlier. So firstly, to tune in, to listen to what your child has to say about what's on the page, which characters they are excited about, pick up on their interest. Secondly, to talk more, try to go beyond what's seen and seen on the page or written on the page. You can talk about the illustration also, like the number of animals, the trees, what are the color of the clothes that the characters are wearing. And you can also take turns to ask your children about the story, or even something as simple as when a character is eating an apple, you can ask your child, do you like to eat apples too? Or if not, what fruits do you like? So it's just having a conversation with them. For the activities for talking, these are some activities we have mainly in the form of creating and telling a story. So after we read a book, we can get children to be further invested in the idea of storytelling and having fun with their own imagination. And this also helps them to build their narrative skills as they learn to sequence a story. So you can see on the left, it's story cubes, and on the right, it's a spin a stories prompt. So both of these are tools to help children embark on storytelling, so they don't have to start from zero, which can be quite daunting. On the left, you can see the kids can actually draw their own characters, settings, and accessories, and then they can throw the story cube to see how the story progresses. On the right, the children can come up with their own events and incidents, and you can spin the wheel to see what happens next in the story. For sample books, this first one is a great example of how to encourage talking by mimicking sounds. After the bus comes the bee. So you can see on the next page, it mainly uses onomatopoeia, which is the vocal imitation of the sound associated with it. So in this case, after the ribbit ribbit, you would flip the flap and it will reveal the frog. So the children would learn both the animal and the sound associated with it. The second book is an example of how we can encourage talking by having a question and answer conversation. So if you see the next page, it's actually essentially a game of I Spy. So one of the lines in the book actually says, I spy something that leaves slimy trails. Can you count 9 spacey snails? So both the adult and child can look at the page, find the snails, and do a counting activity together. For book recommendations, we have Can You Guess on the left, which is one page with the animal sound, and then another page for babies and toddlers to guess what is the animal. The second book, Who Made This Mess, is a bit more complex story but very fun for older kids because there are visual clues of the culprit behind different messes made, and kids are to deduce which animal did it. And yeah, that's all we have for the early literacy practices and skills. So we will just close it by sharing with you what we have in terms of programs and resources at the library. So firstly, for programs, for ages 0 to 3, we have programs for online, such as the baby songs and rhymes and toddler songs and rhymes. On-site, we have Baby Lab Sit and Jiggle Read and Rhyme, but essentially all of these programs are about nursery songs and rhymes. For older kids, we have reading, science, sustainability, and digital programs. You can scan the QR code on the left to see the full suite of programs and content that we have. On the next slide, these are just some pictorial examples to let you know. So for example, on the left, we have a digital program where children and parents use a mobile app to do a stop animation video together. In the center, we have a science programs where children use race cars and slopes to learn about how gears work. And on the right, you can see this is just our classic Jiggle Read and Rhyme program. Online, we also have our LearnX website. So this is more for OT, own time, own target kind of learning, where we have curated learning packages, book recommendations, activities and resources, videos as well. All this you can go to with children at home at your own free time. Same thing, you can just scan the QR code to learn more about it. And that's all that we have for today. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and we welcome any questions that you may have.